Steam locomotives, and subsequently really any kind of railroad rolling stock, are really big, heavy objects. And moving them from place to place when they can't go there under their own power, and if there's no tracks in many cases, gets to be a bit of an interesting thing. So today we're going to talk about how do you truck a steam locomotive. What's up guys, this is Heiss, and very recently, within the last couple weeks, we took Denver and Rio Grande Western number 346 from the Colorado Railroad Museum in Golden, Colorado, all the way down to the Durango and Silverton in Durango, Colorado. If you're not a long-haul, heavy-haul trucker, that's about a 6-hour trip by car, but takes a little bit longer when you've got a big payload behind you. So how did we get 346 down there anyways? The rails down to Durango from Denver on 3-foot gauge have been gone for a very long time. Well, the answer is we use a dedicated heavy-haul semi-truck. Considering the weight of a locomotive is pretty heavy, it's not a standard 18-wheeler, it's got extra attachments to allow for extra wheel sets to be placed down so that it can carry a heavier load. And this particular trailer that the company ended up using was one where the truck could park it on our parking lot track and then pull away with the front portion of the trailer lifted off of like a big hinge pin so that the trailer could be leaned down and then the truck could then just come back in and pick it up once we'd loaded. So it was actually a pretty cool setup. I'm not sure what kind of trailer it's technically called. If you're a trucker and you know, let me know down in the comments below. But once the truck gets into position, all we really have to do is build a ramp up to the trailer deck where there was 3-foot gauge rails placed on with some welded stringers in between. And we've got a dedicated ramp that we built that's pretty simple to install. It ties in with a, fish plate look-alike or joint bar look-alike between the rails that are on the trailer, and then it goes down and is contoured down to match the gauge of the track and the parking lot. And then all we have to do is support it with sufficient amount of oak and wood and any kind of dunnage really that acts as ties so that we can put the locomotive up and on the trailer. Once you've got the ramp installed, all that you have to do next is very carefully and slowly bring the locomotive and put it on the trailer. In our case, we used a handler car, a train car in between the diesel locomotive and then the steam engine itself, because the diesel locomotive's got a really heavy axle loading, and it means that it doesn't really get along with the ramp. But, that's what having the space of a train car in between it was for. Once it got loaded up, the ramp needed to get out of the way. The truck came over, picked its trailer back up, and was off to Durango. One thing that I will note is that because 346 was going down to Durango for a rebuild, we didn't send it with a lot of stuff on it. We took anything that they didn't really need to mechanically look at for the rebuild and took it off and stored it securely at the museum. And that made the locomotive extra light, which made it easier to truck. You could truck it with almost all of its pieces on it. You might have to take some things off for overheight clearance, or maybe some things off for weight's sake and split things up that way. You'll note that usually when a locomotive is transported, it's transported as locomotive on one truck, tender on another truck. And in our case, we didn't even send the tender because the tender actually is almost brand new. 346's current tender has a brand new cistern on it, and I believe the frame was redone, and all of that was done and put together in like 2013. So the tender is in really good shape, and it's just going to need some cosmetic work for the sake of accuracy and some work on the air system. It's pretty much ready to go, but the locomotive is what needs the lion's share of work. And some of you might be wondering, why is the museum sending 346 to Durango anyways? We have a machine shop and we have tools and people who know steam pretty well. Now, I'm not speaking for the museum officially here, but this is my take as somebody who's worked on the engine and has worked in the shop and knows a thing or two about it. Well, the answer is that she needs some pretty hefty work done to her. She's been in service for a really long time. She's been running at the museum since 1962, and before that, of course, she had a full service career on the railroad and many other railroads and lumber companies even. And with that, over time, some things haven't been addressed that have been slowly wearing, and it's time to fix them now when you get to the rebuild. She needs at least one new axle, which means the wheels gotta get pressed off, and we don't have a wheel press. She needs some welding work done in the boiler, and none of our folks are dedicated code welders that can weld on pressure vessels. So, okay, well, it needs all this kind of work. We could probably coordinate it and organize it at the museum and have people come up and have the right tooling brought in. but it would be a lot more expensive and a lot more coordination on top of operating everything else, and sending it to Durango where they have all of that equipment, all of that know-how, and all the people that can do the work just makes sense. And so that's why she's going down for the rebuild. If you want to know more about a 1472-day inspection and rebuild, I did a video kind of overviewing what the Form 4 process is and what really is a 1472 at its core that you might find interesting. Check it out right up there. We're all here, the entourage in Durango, to see that thing that we woke up early to load in such a long time.
You've come to blow me up like you did 345.
Once 346 got to Durango, it was just a question of unloading it at Durango. So we found a nice piece of straight track running through the shop, plopped the trailer down right there, and same process. Install a ramp, use a handler car, pull the locomotive off, get the ramp and the trailer out of the way, and then it was time to put the locomotive away. And this time, it was very kind of the Durango and Silverton to actually put 346 inside their own museum. They have a museum attached to the roundhouse where you can go and look at locomotives and different artifacts that they have in Durango. It's free admission, I believe, during the day. It's pretty neat to go see a K28 and a K36 up close and personal and everything, and they have rotating different exhibits in there, so definitely worth a look if you're in Durango. But 346 is waiting on their contract shop to get finished so that it can go in there and they can start work. And so while they're waiting for that, it's on display to kind of interpret the story of a locomotive rebuild in the museum. So make sure you go check it out if you're down in Durango. And one fun aside that I do want to talk about while we're here is this was really 346's first time back to Durango in about 72 years. She was bought by Bob Richardson, the founder of the Colorado Railroad Museum, in the early 1950s. I want to say 51 or 52. And she was actually brought off of the Montezuma Lumber Company by the Rio Grande Southern number 20, fun coincidence, and brought to Durango by the 20, where it sat and waited transport to Alamosa. And that would have been the last time 346 was there. And she used to be the Durango switcher. She used to work out of Durango, and that was home base for her for a number of years. So seeing 346 back on home rails was pretty special. She hadn't been in that roundhouse in eons, and now she's sitting there, and it's pretty cool to think of the history coming back together in that way. Also very neat along that front is that there's two other surviving C-19 class locomotives like 346, the 340 and then the Rio Grande Southern 41, both of which that operate out at the Knott's Berry Farm Railroad out in California. 41 just got an extensive rebuild done by the Durango and Silverton again back last November, and now 340 is also there. So 340 and 346 are both in Durango together for the first time in, about 72 years plus. The whole team was joking the whole time we were unloading 346, like, what do you think 340 and 346 would be saying to each other? Is it, oh my god, you're still around? Or is it, oh my god, you're still around? You gotta wonder. Every locomotive has a personality, so what were they thinking about it? Also very fun for me, being back in Durango for the first time in a little while, I got to see 493 run for the first time. 493 is the sister to the 491 that we operate at the museum. And I was one of the guys that helped pull it out of the weeds. I didn't do the huge amount of work that the Durango and Silverton did. I'm not taking credit for the fact that the locomotive runs, but when it was up in Silverton's store dead, myself and Brett and a few others were the ones to actually pull it out of the weeds and get it ready to go. And it got it back down to Durango. And I did the internal firebox inspection. I pulled the throttle out of the locomotive and did the first internal boiler inspection on it because there was a chance that the locomotive was going to come and operate at the museum for a brief time. And that deal didn't end up working out for a number of different reasons. But after that, she sat for a while, and then the Durango and Silverton decided to restore it to operation. And so that was all circa like 2016, 2017, and I've never seen it under steam since then. I saw it when we went for the 70s charter back last year during the winter, but it was sitting dead cold outside the roundhouse, and it was neat to see put together and all restored, but it wasn't running. And this time it was running, and getting to see that engine run was pretty special, because there was always a hope that, okay, maybe it would be ours, and I knew it was a good engine from doing the inspections. And so seeing the Durango and Silverton folks take that locomotive and really go through it and do it right and get it back in service. They did a ton of work, and it's a fantastic locomotive, and it was so cool to see, for me personally, like, oh yeah, I did a little something on that one. So got that little connection.
Look, Jeff followed the directions of the sign.
Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed taking a look at what it takes to put a steam locomotive on a truck and get it moved around. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you all next time.